So today is lesson 1 of COMP2084, server-side scripting with ASP.NET. This is our Thursday section. I actually have 3 sections of the class this semester. So what are we going to do today? So I will kind of let those of you who don't know me get to know a little bit about me. I've got an item up on Blackboard so I can get to meet some of you who I haven't taught before. We're going to kind of do a high-level overview of the course and the technology stack that we're going to be using. And then we'll just kind of get our hands dirty, just playing around really lightly with ASP.NET. We'll kind of get familiar with the environment and do a few basic things. Nothing too heavy today. Okay. What kind of dog have you got, Chris? And what's its name?
Mia, Great Pyrenees Labrador Retriever mix,
Oh,
13
great.
years old.
That's great. All right, so our information about the course, if you haven't had a look, I did send out an announcement, but I'm going to go over the syllabus and our course plan. There are a few items for you. If we've already had a class together before, then you can skip this item under getting started about introducing yourself. But if we haven't had a class together before, it would be great if you could introduce yourself in this Blackboard thread. There's just a few basic questions here. Giving me a sense of who you are, where and when you'll be learning, and kind of what some of your career goals are. So I'd appreciate it if you would take care of that item. Couple other items here, which I will come back to as we kind of go through the syllabus and course plan. And at any point, if you've got any questions, concerns, comments, then either flip on your mic and go right ahead, or feel free to use the chat. Hello, Nafise. Hi, Preston. Hi, Mike. Welcome back to all of you. So we'll have live classes every week. I know some instructors just sort of record their classes and you work on your own time. In this class, you really have the choice. So I'm going to be doing full lessons live in this WebEx room every Thursday. I would encourage you to come to class. You're going to get more out of the class if you can ask questions in real time, interact with some of your classmates. I think you're going to have a better experience. I realize some people may have other commitments, or they may be in a time zone where it's not reasonable for them to log on at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And in that case, I am still recording the classes and they will all be posted to YouTube, and all the learning activities are on Blackboard. So you do have the option to learn outside of the 11 to 2 window, as long as you're keeping up with the coursework each week. So our focus in this class is web application development using a Microsoft technology stack. So in your intro to web programming class, we were using a LAMP stack, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. In this class, we're going to be using ASP.NET as our web programming framework. We're going to be using Microsoft SQL Server as our backend database. There's no textbook for the course. All the material will be posted on Blackboard, and the weekly lessons posted to YouTube. Typically, those will be posted at the latest by Friday morning, but usually by later Thursday afternoon. It takes a little while for the videos to get processed and uploaded. Okay. So my email is here. I've got office hours Tuesday mornings and Thursday mornings before class. If you need help and you want a one-on-one appointment and those times don't work for you, then send me an email and we will try and set up another time to meet. Please book your appointments with the Calendly booking system. So you just go to Calendly, let's say you want an appointment next Tuesday, and you just click on one of the time slots. And one of the great things about Calendly, it integrates with Microsoft Office. So it will automatically send me an email for a meeting request, and it will put it in my Outlook calendar as well as in your calendar. So this is all kind of done automatically. So really efficient way to book an appointment if you need one. Just a couple of requests around this. Please only book one appointment at a time. I only have those set slots each week, so I don't want one student to book, 4 straight appointments when there may be other students needing help. And lastly, if you aren't able to make your appointment, please delete it. Please cancel it through Calendly, which will automatically notify me and free up that spot on my calendar so then another student can use it. And it's common, you may be struggling with a problem on an assignment, you book an appointment, you figure out, you solve the problem, you no longer need the appointment, just make sure you free up that time slot. That way, I'm not sitting in the WebEx room waiting for you, and someone else could use that time instead. So what can you expect from me? This is kind of laid out here, but maybe I will, well, I'll just go over this a little bit. So I do have a plan for this class. I've taught this class many times before. I was the main curriculum developer for the content in this course. So I have a plan of what we want to do each week. I'll try to put in context and offer lots of real world examples that relate to the things we're doing in class. I encourage you to ask questions. I will do my best to answer your questions. And when you ask me stuff I don't know, I will find out the answer and get back to you. I'll try to be really clear about the requirements for your assignments, and I will try to make this course interesting and engaging. Obviously, it's not a circus. Our primary goal is to learn, but I hope to give you a good experience and have you enjoy the time in the class as opposed to finding it something in your week that you dread. I'm also open to feedback. I'm happy to listen to any comments, questions, suggestions you have about how I can make the course better. I can't always promise I can act on all of those suggestions, but I will certainly listen and do the best I can. In terms of email, generally I will respond within 24 hours during the school week. Over the weekend in the evenings, I tend to try to get away from my devices and not be plugged in all the time for my own kind of well-being and quality of life. So typically if you email me in the evening during the week, you get a response the next morning. If you email me over the weekend, you'll generally get a response Monday morning. Okay, so I try not to stay tethered to my phone and my computer all the time. I don't find that's very good for me. Now, since a lot of you, probably about 2/3 of you in the room, have been in the class for me before, I'll give you the chance, rather than me doing a big introduction about kind of my background or my teaching style. If you have anything, if you've been in my class before, and there's anything about my classes or my teaching that you'd like to share with some of the new students, feel free to put it in the chat. And I take no offense, and I'm not fishing for compliments. But if you think there's anything useful about being in my class that other students should know, then feel free to mention it in the chat. I try to be a fairly demanding instructor, but that's because I want you to learn a lot. But I also do my best to be very fair with all my students.
I've got to say, access to the GitHub account comes in really helpful. I mean, especially if you're trying to understand a problem or something, especially when you're trying to follow along in class. If you miss anything, just head over there and you're pretty much good to go.
Okay, thanks for that, Preston. Yep. Also,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, you're good.
Everything we do in class, at the end of class, or even when we take a break, I will push it up to GitHub. So all the files are there and public for you to reference at any time. And occasionally, if you need the files, if you're a bit behind or I forget to push them to GitHub, just let me know and I will do that either during class or at the end of class.
I always appreciate how you. Oh, sorry about my bird. He gets excited. I always appreciate how you take the time to make things, contextualize things that we're doing in class in the broader sense, because I feel like a lot of professors kind of forget that their course isn't the only thing we're doing. But you always, last semester, I always appreciated when you took the time to say, the stuff you're learning in database class is going to apply here, or this will come up in your co-op, or this is a potential career path. Just contextualizing everything in class in the broader sense it's really helpful. I always
Okay,
appreciate
that's good that that's working. And you know what? And feel free to ask If we're doing something in class and you're saying, maybe I understand what we're doing, but I don't understand why, and I need some more context, or I need to know how this fits in with something I'm doing in one of my other classes. If I'm not giving you enough of that, then let me know. And I will do my best to do that.
And the speed as well. I know in some of our past courses, trying to keep up with the teacher. I know you're pretty good with writing out a few lines and then explaining kind of what each object does. A few of our teachers are kind of pretty speedy when it comes to that kind of stuff. So once you fall behind, it's hard to catch back up, but you're pretty good. So keeping on with that, I'd say would help a lot.
Okay, thanks, Preston. And in truth, that's something I've really had to work on because I used to get feedback quite often from students that I was going too fast. So I'm trying, and at times that may still happen. So when that happens and you find yourself behind, then please let me know. You know, it isn't a problem to say, hey, can you go back? Can you stop? Can you explain this again? Because unless people are letting me know, then I will assume that most people are kind of keeping up. So again, you can communicate with me through class because I'm sure there will be times where that happens. All right. Well, thanks for that extra feedback. So for you guys, how are you going to succeed in the class? Everybody here has made it through first year and passed 2 semesters of Georgian. So obviously you are not in the wrong program. The stuff we're teaching is not beyond your ability to master and succeed, which is great. To do well in this class, again, I would come to the Thursday section. Almost everyone is here, which is great. If you're able to participate in real time, you're going to get more out of the course and you're going to learn more. Make sure you ask for help when you need it. So you can come to office hours. You can send me an email. We can look at setting you up with a peer tutor in the course if you're really struggling. So there's lots of opportunities for you to get help. You just need to reach out and ask for it. Okay? Start your assignments early so that you're giving yourself time if you run into a problem or an obstacle or a stumbling block, that you have time to get help. And you'll want to submit all the assignments on time, complete them all, start them on time. And aside from 1 or 2 small things we're going to do together in class, everything is your own work, has to be your own work. I'll talk a bit more about this, and make sure you're plugged into Blackboard in your email because this is obviously the only way I have to connect with you. So here are the assignments for the class. We'll have 4 kind of small in-class assignments or labs. Some of these will be group assignments. They're not very big. And then your major project, you're going to have 1 major project that's actually divided into 4 parts. So so rather than building, these are not going to be 4 separate applications. It's actually going to be 1 big application that you plan, build an initial prototype, and then add additional features onto. So by the end of the semester, you're going to have a big project that you've built that you can have in your portfolio. We'll have an online midterm exam in week 7. We'll have a final exam. This exam will be all practical, open book, and during our last class. And then, as we had in our PHP class, we'll have weekly quizzes. So I believe there's 10 quizzes in our 14-week class. Each one is worth 1%. And the quiz is just a review of the previous lesson. It's 5 multiple choice questions on Blackboard, and you have basically 6 days to do each quiz. But there's no retakes on the quiz because they're open book and you have so much time to do them. You only get 1 chance per quiz. You do need to earn a 50 to pass the course, and I say earn because the grades aren't something that I give you. The grades are something you earn through your work. Everything will be due in the class, other than the exams, will be due on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. So the day before our class at 5 o'clock, that's when your quizzes, learning activities, and assignments will all be due. Late submissions are graded at a reduction of 20% per day. I'm not an unreasonable person. I understand people do have legitimate reasons why they may need more time, illness, family emergency, things like this. If you have a challenge meeting a deadline, please email me. And as long as you have a good reason, we'll work out an extension that is fair and reasonable. Okay? But having lots of projects to do isn't one of them, or not being able to debug things, or your computer having computer problems. Those things don't really fall under this. I do also just want to point out, because I get this request at the end of every semester. I had 4 requests just at the end of the summer semester. There's no makeup assignments given at the end of the term in December, or if you don't do some of these things during the semester, you can't submit them at the end of December if you want to raise your mark. Okay, I'm not going to mark things then, because it creates a fairness issue. If 80%, 90% of the class submit an assignment in September, it's not reasonable to allow one student to then go and do the assignment at the end of December and ask for it to be marked. So you will want to do the assignments. There's lots of opportunities to earn grades, but you want to do as many of them as you can and do them on time. That way you'll earn the most grades possible. All your assignments, quizzes, unless I've otherwise specified as a class activity, it has to be your own individual work. Okay? The minimum penalty, if you give me work that is clearly not entirely your own or has been shared, is a 0 on the assignment. And if I have questions about your assignment, or I have concerns that maybe your work is not entirely your own, we'll have a one-on-one meeting where I'll ask you to walk me through the assignment and answer questions to verify that in fact the work is yours. So I deal with this every semester. I know most of you have heard this speech before, but yet I still continue to deal with it. I give this talk at the start of every class, every semester, every class. So this summer I taught 1 class, and I only had to teach the class for half of the semester before my summer vacation. Anybody want to guess how many academic misconduct penalties I had to give out this summer in 1 class? Golden says 7, David says 8, 12, 6. So, I have to add my summer semester. So I did have, I think, 3 more. 3 more this summer. I better add that right now. So you can see I have not had a semester without any academic misconducts in 7 years. So I would be super happy if this semester I did not have to spend any time dealing with students copying assignments. Yeah, 2016, that was this course. It was a train wreck, and it was actually in this course, which, as I said, I've taught many times. It's a huge waste of time. So every one of these, I have to meet with the student, I think twice, fill out a bunch of paperwork, check with the registrar's office about their academic record. It's a nightmare. It does not endear me to students when they cheat. And most of the time, not all, but most of the time, this is a case of students who submit the same work. And they try to make slight modifications to it to try to fool me into thinking that the work is different. So to that end, there's an item on Blackboard. Yeah, that's right, Raymond. That's what happens a lot of the time. You would not believe some of the ridiculous things that I have seen. Projects with another student's name and student number in the project. I had a project last winter where the student had paid a student in Africa who was a computer science student to do the project, and I found the original GitHub repository that they had ripped off. That was exactly the same. How did I find it? Because they left the original student developer's name in it that they had paid. I could see it in the code. Just crazy stuff. So to that end, on Blackboard, under course information, I'd like you all to go to this link. Down on here, number 2, the academic integrity policy. I'll throw it in the chat as well. So if you click begin, I'd like you to take a couple minutes to read over this. So this is largely saying you agree to the college's policies, but also some of my own rules, which I've highlighted here, that include using work that you find online. Trying to avoid any misunderstanding from anybody about what you are or are not allowed to do. If you don't agree with anything here, then please email me and we can have a one-on-one meeting to discuss your concerns. Just give me a little thumbs up when you've had a chance to complete this item. Thanks, Jennifer. And if you have questions, feel free to ask, and I'm happy to clarify anything. Okay, that's good, David. There is one other small but important academic integrity item I just want to mention, and that is I have found over the last year or two that there are certain course sharing websites for students where people have taken documents I've posted on Blackboard, like assignments, and shared them on those sites for other students. Not only does that violate the academic integrity policy, but that also violates copyright laws, as those documents are my own intellectual property. So please don't take any assignments or anything I've posted to Blackboard that I've created and share those on coursework websites. I'm in contact with several of the better known sites regularly. I check for my files and I have them remove them for copyright violation. So I don't want to see slide decks or assignments that I've posted on Blackboard shared on those websites, please. They're for your use, but not for the use of other people who are not registered in the course. Does anybody have any questions or concerns around academic integrity issues before we move on? General principle should be, if you're not sure if this is allowed or not, just ask me before you do it. And I'll help clarify so that you stay out of trouble. Okay, so the last thing in our syllabus I just wanted to have a quick look at was the schedule. We will probably stay pretty much on track with this schedule. Okay, so we'll do an overview today. I'm going to give you your first assignment next week. It's very small. It doesn't actually involve any coding, and it will be due the week after. You'll then have 3 weeks to do your first coding assignment, which is lots of time. Shouldn't take anywhere near 3 weeks to do, excuse me. Then our midterm before reading week, and then assignments 3 and 4. Again, we'll just be working in the same project and adding additional functionality. And then our final exam, which will be held in class from 11 till 2 on the 16th. Okay, are there any questions from anybody about the course plan, about the assignments or the grading or the schedule, or anything else that's on your mind? Yep. Tushar, the final exam will be all coding. There's no question and answer. And typically what I've done in the past for the final exam, what I may do, so in class, starting next week, we're actually going to build in our weekly Thursday lessons, we're going to build one large project like we did in our PHP class. So we're going to build one project out and just keep adding on to it. So what I may do for the final exam is take that finished project and then ask you to make a bunch of changes or fixes to it. There will also be multiple versions of the final exam, so not everyone in the class will have the exact same set of, will have the exact same exam. So for example, if 3 students are living together in the class, you're probably going to be doing different versions of the exam. Any other questions? I haven't completely, the midterm will definitely have a coding component. There may be a small question and answer component on that as well. I haven't decided. We haven't had a midterm in this class the last few times I've taught it, because with COVID, our semester was 1 week shorter. So the week I got rid of was the midterm exam. Now that we're back to a full 14 weeks, I've been able to put the midterm back. So the midterm will definitely be at least partly coding, if not entirely, but I will let you know what the format is before the exam, a few weeks before, so you can prepare properly. Anybody else have any questions about the class? Felix, that's a good question. It's a kind of a difficult question to answer. I think some people will say yes and some people will say no. On the one hand of this class, we're certainly going to be doing more advanced things, which is, I mean, and .NET I think is much more powerful than PHP. At the same time, with PHP, you also had to learn the concepts and fundamentals of what web programming was and how server-side script interacted with the database and interacted with HTML. So you had to learn those concepts as well. Well, now you already know those things. So you already understand, you have that foundation of how dynamic web applications work. So I think some students will find this course harder and others will find the PHP course harder simply because they also had to learn those kind of fundamental concepts. We're certainly going to do things that are much more advanced in this class, and the software that we're going to use is much more powerful. Anybody else have any questions about the class? You'll be just fine. Trust me on this one. The way I like to think about it is in PHP, we sort of taught you how to ride a tricycle. In this class, we're going to teach you how to ride a motorcycle. Right? But we can't start you out riding the motorcycle. We've got to get you riding the tricycle first. Now you know how to do that. Now we can put you on something faster and more powerful and more fun, really. So a few other items on Blackboard. So you can find all my contact info, not only in the syllabus under course info, but also here. Got the link to Calendly here as well. Ariel, duly noted. We're going to take it really easy today, I promise. Okay, we will ramp up. Yeah, that's kind of the goal, Felix, is to have you build a pretty robust project at the end of it that you have in your portfolio and you can show somebody when you're out job seeking. So a few other items on Blackboard. A lot of you are familiar with this already. So under weekly learning, we've got folders for each week. So a typical lesson will look something like this. So here's next week's lesson. So the week 1 quiz, which will be due next week, will be the first item. It'll be available this afternoon until 5 p.m. next week. We've got a learning objectives of what we want to do that week in class, maybe some resources or links or learning activities. And then the bottom of each folder, there's a checklist reminding you what you should have done before the next week's class. We've also got here in weekly learning, I've got this tools and resources folder with a bunch of items that are related to the class as a whole. So the WebEx link, which you're already in, is here. I'll use that same link for office hours if you need a meeting. We've got a YouTube playlist. So by tonight, I will have today's lessons here. I do the same lesson basically Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I've already done today's lesson. So if you go to the, you want to see what's coming up, you can just go to the Tuesday playlist. We probably don't need that. So in the Tuesday playlist, here was my introduction and then the 3 parts of our lesson. And if you want to see even older lessons from when I did the course last fall, let's see where. So by the end of the semester, here was the IMDW section from last fall. And the course hasn't changed all that much. There'll be a few things we're going to do new and are updated. But if you actually want to get a sneak peek of a lesson, you can go to the fall 2020 playlist and you can see some of the material from last fall. And the link to my GitHub page, as Preston mentioned, where all the code gets posted each week, is right here. The instructions, I did email these out to you last week about how to get Visual Studio. And when you install it, you want to make sure you add the ASP.NET and the Azure components. So that's right here. There's one that says ASP.NET and web development, and then there's also this Azure development component. So we'll want to install both of those components. We will need SQL Server. That's our backend database engine. We don't need it for today. We'll need that in a few weeks, so don't panic if you don't have that right now. That's okay. And as always, I always put Git, we're going to use Git. Again, Git is integrated really nicely into Visual Studio. So this semester, we can use Git without having the Git commands. But if you are now comfortable using the command line, then I've put the commands up here for you to reference. Now, I know Felix and I were chatting. I was also chatting with some students in my Tuesday class. about your operating system. Can you do this class without Windows? The answer is yes and no. Technically, does Visual Studio run on Linux and on Mac OS? Yes, it does. Older version didn't, but it's been cross-platform for several years now. I would still recommend, based on the experience of other Mac users in the class in the past, the course will be easier if you install a copy of Windows using a virtual machine, something like VMware or Parallels. I had several students last fall in the web program who were Mac users that started the course and went partway through just using their Mac OS, and eventually they switched to a Windows on a virtual machine and found that it was much easier for them. So don't panic if you have a Mac for today and you've installed Visual Studio on it. That's just fine. You can absolutely work with it. But you may want to consider getting a copy of Windows, which you can get from the Azure for Education site. You can get it for free, and installing that with a virtual machine. Yep, if you have Windows, you're fine. It's kind of Windows first.
How do I use the SQL server?
We'll talk about that in a few weeks, Chris. We don't need that yet.
Okay.
That's our database engine. So that's the sort of the Microsoft equivalent of MySQL that we used in our PHP class and you used in your database class. So we will start using that, but not for a few weeks. So I'll go over some instructions on installing and configuring that probably in week 3. So you don't need to worry about that for now.
Okay, thank you.
Just bear with me for a second. I'm going to recreate our groups here. So we're going to do a quick activity. Okay, if you do a quick just refresh. I got you, David. Well, necessary evil, right? Because all that info's got to go somewhere. So if you refresh Blackboard, you should have, I don't have it on mine, but you should have a groups link somewhere in the left nav, and it should show you that you're in learning group 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So we're going to do a brief activity kind of as an overview of our ASP.NET technology stack. So find your group. And then if you jump into the week 1 folder, we used this Miro.com whiteboard site before. So I want you to open up this link. So check which group you're in, and your instructions are here. Put the link in the chat as well. So on the whiteboard, I've got 5 questions. So depending on which group you're in, I want you to make a sticky note with that color. Do a little research online and add a brief answer and add your name under your sticky note. So, my answer here So if you're in group 2, your question is, where do we find resources on ASP.NET? So you don't have to answer all 5 questions. Ariel, there should be a groups link on Blackboard. You may just have to refresh the page because I just made the groups. I think there's a groups link over on the left. And when you click it, it'll show you whether you're in group 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. If you can't find it, let me know. So depending on which group you're in, you can use this little sticky note here and do a little research. And I'll just maybe pause our recording and I'll give you 5 minutes or so. Do a little reading online and post your answer on the whiteboard. All right, so I'm seeing some really useful comments and sticky notes here, although everybody ignored the instruction to put their name on their sticky note. So why are we learning .NET? Yeah, it's a framework for making websites. We can make applications, services, and content. Thanks to Fise, it has its own built-in web server. We typically can use multiple programming languages. Generally, C# is the most common for .NET. Yeah, it's for making dynamic websites. Okay, so where do we find resources? Yes, the Resource Manager class. LinkedIn is a great resource, particularly LinkedIn Learning, because Microsoft bought LinkedIn, so there's lots of great tutorials. The official site, thanks Chris, ASP.NET. Obviously lots on Stack Overflow as well. So we'll talk a bit more about MVC, but these are some good answers here. So MVC stands for Model, View, and Controller. And as Colton mentioned, as David explains, our model represents kind of the data, the view are our UX, our user interface, and then our controller is the logic. It's the brains that lets the user interface and the data interact. Felix mentioned this as well. And MVC is not specific to ASP.NET. It's a widely used software pattern. We're going to use it in our JavaScript class in January as well. So we're going to learn it, and then we're going to use it in multiple technologies. So .NET Core and .NET Framework, yeah, .NET Framework, largely now for making Windows-based desktop applications, and .NET Core is cross-platform. .NET Core is also newer and faster, so it's higher performance. .NET Framework is older. Other products that integrate with Microsoft, ASP.NET, yes, Windows Phone, which I used to have, C#, other things as well. All right, so we've got some useful answers. I'll leave the board up for now. ASP.NET and YouTube as well. That's right, Jake. Yeah. So what we want to do, I'm going to stop our video here. I think we're due for a little break here. So get out of your chairs, or I actually just got this standing desktop, or I might need to sit down because I've been standing. Let's get away from our computers for 10 minutes. Go get some water, some food, some fresh air, and we will come back in 10 minutes. And we'll kind of build on some of this stuff and take a little bit of a deeper dive into ASP.NET. Okay, we're back in 10.